Welcome to Beacon of Creation, a weekly podcast on game design through the lens of Magic the Gathering. I'm Tim.
And I'm Mono Whiteboarder, also known as Peter.
We got our Stetsons on this week. We're going to be talking some Thunder Junction. I kind of wanted an excuse to talk about like Archetype uncommons, like ever since we've had that kind of episode on Simic.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I think we're going to do this week is we got like a little bit of a rubric of a couple different like categories to rate Archetype uncommons on. And those Archetype uncommons, arcuns, are sort of like a big part of how sets are explained these days. If you want to market to drafters, showing them one card doesn't excite them like it might a constructed player. But if you could show them, here's what this archetype's about, it could be really exciting. So for Thunder Junction, we're going to look at each pair, get kind of the summary from Wizards on what that pair is supposed to be doing, look at the two cards from that pair in Thunder Junction, and then break it down with a couple categories.
Yeah, so the categories we're looking at are excitement. How cool does this look? Like when you read it, is this the kind of thing that a new player is going to be like, ooh, yeah, that's what I want to do. That sounds really fun.
Is it brand new? We've never read that before. You know, I've never seen this archetype before. This sounds exciting.
Yeah, or is it doing something a color hasn't done before? Like Convoke in blue-red was pretty neat.
Yeah.
Then we'll look at the accuracy of it. This is kind of, okay, here's what the archetype is doing, but like how well supported can that actually be? Like is the two uncommon cards the only thing that's kind of representing that archetype? Do we get it on a couple commons?
How much does your like final deck feel like this archetype?
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether or not it's good. Are you likely to get a lot of cards, a lot of elves? Do you actually have a lot of elves in your deck, or are there just like a couple uncommon gold elf cards because people like those?
Then we'll take a look at synergy. So will this archetype make two cards combined to be better than the sum of their parts? You know, is this archetype, are the cards interacting together? Does it feel like you're building a little engine? You're putting something together? Is it tickling that Johnny side of your brain a little bit? We talked about this a lot in Simic, how synergistic those abilities were.
Yeah. That was one of the things we talked about in that episode that we're maybe expanding out here. Does it actually seem like this archetype will like take a bunch of cards that no one else wants and actually do something pretty cool with them?
And then finally, we're going to look at the strength of the archetype uncommon. So, you know, when you open your pack and you see that green-white card, that blue-red card, is it something that you're going to want to play? Is it something that you're going to want to put in your deck? Or is it kind of chaff, something you're going to ignore?
Yeah, if you had like just a 3-mana 4/4 in this color pair that has like an ETB, well, whether or not the rest of my deck has a similar ETB or similar strategy, this creature's just big enough that, you know, I could take it, I could have a good creature to just like start my curve with.
Mm-hmm.
This is not an episode about telling you which archetype is the good one to draft, which ones are the most powerful. One of the things that I've kind of realized talking with like custom set designers and stuff like that is that most sets don't get to the point where like the limited in the set is like super finely tuned and like there are good archetypes and bad archetypes. The step that a lot of people get to is like, what will make people actually want to draft this? If I'm the designer, if I read an archetype uncommon, what promise can that card give me that it's worth trying to do this? And not just like a card that I might get passed to me 11th pick or something.
Mm-hmm.
There's already data out on 17 lands. People were drafting the set nonstop since it came out last week. We're not really going to look at that. We're not concerned about, in the end, how powerful is each archetype in Thunder Junction. But this is more about the read. This is more about how believable are these archetypes? How believable are these specific cards for those archetypes? And how excited are we to play with them?
Yeah, it's kind of like when you're showing your custom set to your friends who also play Magic, and you're trying to get them to bite on of like, oh, this is so cool, or oh man, I would love to have this card in my commander deck. You know, we're trying to gauge how latched on to these things people will get, and how you can then apply that to your custom Magic sets.
We're just going to be doing all 10 pairs here. So our first one that we're going to do here is white-blue. This is called Take a Break. Keep your guard up. Use the plot mechanic and cards with flash to pass the turn with mana available, ready for anything. So I don't think you necessarily come to a set like, we're going to make a set where you don't cast things. This is more like we have a cool mechanic, which in this case is plot. And then once you have plot, what can you do in individual color pairs with plot? And maybe that's where this blue-white archetype is.
The goal is that if you cast spells not from your hand. So if you cast it from exile, you're good to go. So you can kind of plot stuff, which isn't casting a spell, and then on your next turn, cast it from outside the game or in exile. You still haven't cast it from your hands, and then you can trigger this end step. Oh, I'm passing with mana up and ready to go.
Plot's a little bit like a foretell or something like that, or cycling or something where I'm going to pay some mana, exile this card. I can later cast that card without paying any more mana. And that later cast, we're going to see on some of these cards, that later cast is from exile, which is going to play into what these gold cards are asking you to do. So before we get into the gold cards, how does this strike you? Does this seem like something that you're trying to do?
Wow, not really. This is definitely one of those ones that reads less exciting than I feel like other archetypes generally do, because it's not how you would normally want to play, and I feel like it's hard to understand how plot's going to operate without playing it necessarily. So this just doesn't read really exciting. Like, oh, you want me to pass it? Holding up counter magic isn't something I normally do in limited.
Yeah. So the two uncommons for this color pair are actually really similar to each other in how they're worded. They just have kind of different effects. So one of them here is Gem Lightfoot, Sky Explorer. It's 4 mana, 3/3 flying vigilance. And then at the beginning of your end step, if you haven't cast a spell from your hand this turn, draw a card. That's actually a pretty good prize.
Yeah. And I feel like you're getting the free card exactly when you want the free card, because for whatever reason you didn't have anything to do on your turn.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it kind of bails you out if you don't have anything to do. If you're plotting or doing like the really telegraph stuff, like, hey, I'm going to play flash cards, hey, I'm going to play counter spells, hey, I'm going to play plot cards. This works with all those. But this actually works when you got nothing to do, which I don't know, sign me up, feels good.
Yeah, it's a little weird in the fact that, like, at least for this Gem Lightfoot card, it doesn't feel still like there's a way to build into it. Like, on my turn, I usually want to be doing something. Like, that is my preferred thing to be doing, is something. Plot helps with that a little bit, but even then, setting up your plot, now you're thinking like, oh, I have to set up my plot, then I have to cast Gem Lightfoot, then the next turn I got to cast my plot. So you're thinking like several turns ahead.
Because this prize is so good, I really don't want to ever block with Gem. So I'm trying to set up for this long game where I'm going to draw extra cards and just overwhelm my opponent. That doesn't help me get to that long game necessarily. Maybe it is good because you just, dump out your hand. You don't worry too much about, plotting ahead of time. And then you just play Gem on turn 7 or something. And then you've run out of juice. So like on turn 8 and 9 and 10, maybe you're getting some extra cards.
This almost feels not in line, though, with the description that they provided. Keep your guard up. Use plot mechanic and cards of flash to pass your turn with mana available.
Yeah.
Where what you're describing is the play pattern of, oh, I'm going to dump out my entire hand. I'm going to just go crazy.
Yeah.
And now I don't have anything to do because I've played all my cards. Now I'll draw some stuff. You're not really keeping your guard up. You're the aggro.
You kind of need to be like setting up some defense ahead of time. Like on turn 3, play a nice blocker. Turn 4, play Gem. You don't get a prize. Turn 5 comes around. You have to, again, not put up a blocker. You have to like do something else. And that something else could be like a instant removal spell on the opponent's turn. It could be a flash creature on the opponent's turn.
It could be our second uncommon in the archetype that has flash. It's like a 1/4. Kind of plays into it very well.
Yeah, and this other one here, this is 5 mana, so 1 more than Gem. So maybe you do play it the turn after. It's a 1/4 with flash. And then has the same sort of setup at the beginning of your end step if you haven't cast a spell, blah, 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 blah. This time you get a 2/2 spirit creature with flying. Wow, that also seems sick.
They definitely weren't holding back. I'm guessing the feeling is that, like, how many times are you going to trigger this throughout the game? Not that often. Like, giving you a whole 2/2 flyer. I'm guessing they're thinking you're going to get this once. If you get it a second time, you feel amazing. Yeah. Once again, a weird spot for an archetype to be of like, yeah, you get to do your archetype thing 2 times in a game, but the reward is really strong.
And that is something we talked a little bit about on the Simic episode where, like, it's kind of hard for games to be long enough for you to get paid off more than a couple times. But even if you do get only 1 or 2 spirits out of this, like, even at 1 spirit, you're definitely breaking even. And at 2 spirits, like, now you're in the position to just never cast things on your turn and just keep getting free spirits and then just your opponent can't attack through all these tokens. This one really flipped on me. When I first read it, I was like, this does not sound like it's going to matter. And it sounds pretty bad. But these 2 cards are great.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I'm still not sold really on the archetype itself, but I'm very sold on the cards representing the archetype. And the cards representing the archetype make me feel like, well, if I'm here, at least I feel in a good spot.
These payoffs are pretty nice and would start to warp my deck, I think, in a cool way. Number 1 vigilance podcast on the internet, as everyone knows. Vigilance on your engine, I don't know if that's a combo. Putting vigilance on something that you really never want to block with unless you're about to die.
It does shut off 2/2s, you know? Yeah, but if they're sending in their 2/2, then you don't block it. But until they get the combat trick, it shuts it off, you know? The hidden benefit of vigilance is making your opponent think about having to bluff. And now you're putting the extra work on them.
Okay. Yeah, putting the extra work on the opponent. All right, I believe it. All right, let's try out our categories here. Excitement. What's your excitement? What do we want to do? 1 to 5? High, medium, low? What are you thinking?
You want to do letter grades?
Not really.
No? You hate the idea of letter grades? Okay, 1 to 5 then.
We only got 10 of these. When you're rating 200 cards, yeah, you need to have like a granular letter grade scale. When you're rating 10 things, a 1 to 5 is going to be plenty.
If we're just looking at the excitement of like you're pitching me the archetype, I'm going to say 2. Yeah, I'm going to go with the 2.
Oh, okay. I flipped from like a 1 or 2. I think I'm really excited. I'm like a strong 4.
Okay.
Accuracy. Does it feel like you'll be able to do this? Does it feel like,
I mean, you can
blue white will be about this?
White and blue both do flash, so that exists there.
Yeah.
You have the instance, so you can just play a few fewer. You have the instance, so you can play fewer creatures. So it seems reasonable to do. I'm thinking between like a 2 and a 3. You know, I feel like a lot of our discussion, we were talking about like, oh, you can also just like play out your hand and then not do the flash bits and not really worry about plotting mechanics. I don't know. I'm going to put it at 2 as well.
I think I'm going to go 3.
Okay.
All right, synergy. So if you do this thing, if you do have the 10 instant deck, if you get a bunch of these cards that tell you not to do stuff, do you feel like it's going to do something that these cards on their own are not going to do?
Yeah. I mean, with these payoffs, like these cards are just going to do their thing.
Yeah.
It is enhancing any instant though that you have that you can play on an opponent's turn. It is enhancing that card because now it's almost like you got a 2/2 and you also got to do something on your opponent's turn.
Yeah, it's like destroy target tapped creature, create a 2/2 flyer.
Yeah.
Counter target spell, draw a card. It's like really enhancing your turns.
I think I'd put it at a 4. I feel like it is making the other cards in your deck better if you can actually make this work.
Last one, we got kind of the raw strength here. So if you just took these 2 cards and put them in a blue-white deck from another block, how well are these cards going to perform?
Man, I still feel like the base line of just like I'm in top deck mode and my 5-drop makes a 2/2 randomly is pretty good. Maybe put him at a 4. I feel like you still need to kind of build your deck around him to make him work. Could
you find enough instants in any set? You probably could. If you're just casting these out of your hand and you've got like a bunch of flyers in your hand, they're maybe a little bit weaker. I think I might go down to 3. Okay. I hear what you're saying, but there are some blue-eye strategies that these don't quite fit into. Though I think it can't quite bottom out. The worst case, they are creatures, they attack and block. If you are in top deck mode or your curve is funky, you can't do something for a turn. It does like pay you off. I can't go too low on the raw strength there.
All right, cool.
Alrighty.
The next archetype is blue-black crimes. Keep targeting your opponents and their stuff turn after turn. You're looking to play a long game, but your constant heist will leave your opponents less than prepared. Very flowery language on that description.
They're all kind of, this is part of the marketing now. This is like Hey, we got to make it a little sexy. It can't just be like only mechanics.
Yeah, and that maybe that ramps up the excitement. You know, if you can pitch something that feels more than just like a game action, that's gonna entice your players. Maybe we need to go over what a crime is, though. This is a game.
So a crime is targeting anything of your opponents, targeting the opponents themselves, any of their permanents, targeting the graveyard. All of those are crimes. So if you're targeting something and it's not yours, it's probably a crime. So this is kind of like what we were just talking about with the blue-white thing. Okay, I could just like use a bunch of counter spells and use a bunch of removal spells and get somewhere. You know, maybe not a crime every turn, but a decent number of crimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're gonna naturally commit crimes in a game of Magic. This feels a little bit more easy to parse, easy to instantly understand. Oh, you want me to target stuff? That's something I always do. I always target stuff.
Maybe every other turn or something you're committing a crime. Probably not much higher than that unless you got something weird going on.
Yeah.
You got to play creatures sometimes.
Yeah, and you can probably find pieces in the set where it's a card that targets something over and over again. Maybe it's something that makes target opponent lose 1 life or deals 1 damage or exiles a card every turn. You know, there's probably going to be a few creatures they can pick up that are extra synergistic in a crime deck.
Yeah, and we got 2 cards here. One of them, Intimidation Campaign. This is an enchantment. This is 1 blue-black, 3 mana. For an enchantment, when it enters the battlefield, each opponent loses a life, you gain 1 life, and you draw a card. And then whenever you commit a crime, you can return it to your hand.
Okay, so what has become kind of a signature card type, the campaign card type, which ETBs has an effect. In this case, it's a very like grindy, classic blue-black grind fest effect where it's lose 1, gain 1, draw a card. And then if you meet some condition, you get to return it to your hand. In this case, you just have to target something. Notably, Intimidation Campaign says each opponent, so you're not targeting anybody there. But if you can follow up Intimidation Campaign and then Doomblade one of your opponent's creatures, they can return it to your hand and keep the grind fest going.
The other card is Lazav. Whenever you commit a crime, Lazav gets bigger and then also can eat something out of a graveyard and become a copy of it until end of turn. So each time you commit a crime, Lazav always gets bigger and always keeps those counters, but might also get like some cool attack in if there's like a big creature in the graveyard or something.
Yeah.
We were talking with Jem about how like my 3/3 flying vigilance, I personally would rarely want to block with that. Lazav here actually does seem like he's pretty good at throwing a block because it starts as a 1/4 and after 1 crime turns into a 2/5 and only gets bigger from there.
It kind of buys you some time to get something interesting in the graveyard. You know, theoretically, a number of the crimes you're going to be committing are going to be destroying your opponent's creatures. So if you destroy a cool enough creature, Lazav can become that creature. And then he's built up some power and toughness with the counters, so he can make a move.
All right, let's break this one down. Excitement. Are you excited to commit a bunch of crimes?
I think I'm going to give it some extra points.
Okay.
Just for the flavoring of the description was good.
Okay.
I think I'm going to give it a 3 for that. You know, I'm not head over heels, but I think it's solid.
I think I am a little lukewarm on this because just targeting your opponent's stuff is already good. So I'm not sure that these payoffs for this deck are going to be that good. I don't know. The Intimidation Campaign here feels like I leave the door open when I'm playing this card. Like I'm draining a small amount of life and drawing cards.
You can definitely see a scenario in which you're doing your Intimidation Campaign thing and it gives your opponent just enough time to draw their bomb and beat you anyway.
On 2 triggers, I don't think I've gotten there. On 3 triggers, I guess that means that I was successful in setting up my board. I drew enough cards, I played enough O5s that I was able to stay alive. But actually, we're going with excitement here. How excited am I to do this? Not very excited. Whether independent of the details of the card. So I'm going 2. Accuracy. Do we think that this is what blue-black is going to do in this set? I kind of think so. I can believe this.
Yeah. I'm sold that I am going to be targeting things in blue-black. That's for sure.
Yeah, sink or swim.
Wait, is this just a straight 5? Like,
This is pretty close to a 5 for me. Yeah.
it's something I know I'm already going to be doing.
Yes.
The cards
good point.
reinforce it strongly. I think this is a 5.
Yeah. All right, synergy. Is this going to make cards that aren't normally good? Is this going to allow me to like pick a bunch of weird cards that other people aren't playing? Is this going to take a couple cards that are kind of good on their own and make them like insane?
Is this the archetypal one on this one where it's like I'm playing this card because it targets something, and the fact that it synergizes with Intimidation Campaign isn't even on my mind. Like, I'm playing this removal spell because it's a removal spell.
Yeah. I could believe that there's like, if there's a card that like eats a great card out of the graveyard, it targets a card in the graveyard every turn or something. What else could exist in like blue? I guess if there's like maybe not a tapper, but like target creature gets -2/-0 until end of turn. So I can repeatedly crime.
Is there something in these colors that would target a player repeatedly? Like, hand disruption maybe gets better because I'm targeting the player, committing a crime, and making them discard a card.
Yeah, I guess
it seems like we're reaching a little bit.
Yeah, I guess it does make like mind rots and like well, they're not really thought seizes, but whatever a crappy thought seize is, it makes those a little less crappy because I also get a little bit of payoff.
There are cards in black that will say something like target player draws a card and loses 1 life. So I think you can target your opponent, but that seems like something you're kind of doing in a pinch rather than something you want to be doing.
And that seems like something I'm doing in an aggressive deck.
Yeah.
Draw all the cards you want. I just took away a bunch of your life and also triggered all these things.
Yeah. Maybe it's not
one or two.
1. It's not totally incapable of synergy, but yeah, somewhere around 2.
Maybe one thing that we should talk about, one thing we should do is we don't want to end up with all 3s. If this is like as close to a 1 as we're going to get, we should put a 1 on this. Does that make sense?
I like it. Yeah, let's be
There
harsh.
should probably be at least 1/1 and at least 1/5. Maybe it's not going to happen, but we should try to use our whole scale. So maybe we want to actually end up close to 1.
I like it. 1 it is.
All right, raw strength. What's the raw strength of Intimidation Campaign and Lazov?
I mean, Intimidation Campaigns, I think, pretty low.
Yeah, I need 3 triggers over a long game. Yeah, that's pretty low.
Lazov is fine. I don't know. I feel like probably these are 2.
Yeah.
I think Lazov bumps him up just past 1.
Yeah, and I think like Lazov, maybe this isn't on the strength thing, but like once in a while, Lazov will do something really impressive because you have 2 counters on him and also turn it into a 7/6. So you got like 9 powers of trample, just like smacking in on your opponent. Yeah. All right, next up, we've got Outlaws, black-red. Assemble a crew of assassins, mercenaries, pirates, rogues, and warlocks. This motley crew of outlaws will find ways to work together to wear down your opponents. This is like a creature type matters thing. If we were guessing, what percentage of the creatures are going to be of these 5 types? What do you think?
Pirates, I wouldn't picture pirates being in a cowboy set. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I could definitely see a lot of rogues and mercenaries, but warlocks similarly. I would maybe expect 1 or 2. So you're looking at rogues and mercenaries as your primary creature types here. I mean, if you think maybe half the cards you see while you're drafting are rogues and mercenaries, that would feel like a really good rate. So, no more than half probably.
And it's something that like other people will probably not care about at all. And that you can get some benefit out of. So maybe that's like something that we can start to get excited for. Like, I'm going to extract a bunch of value out of cards that are just like okay on their own.
What's your general feelings on creature type matters draft archetypes? I feel like that's a pretty common take I hear, especially like in some of the larger communities where there's these design games or competitions.
Yeah.
One of the things judges will note is like things I don't like to see, collectimals and creature type matter archetypes. But what's your general feeling? It can be really cool for the Timmy players. It's something that's really flavorful, especially in an outlaw set. So I think there's some merit to it. I don't want to write it off completely.
Yeah. I'm pretty high on creature type stuff. I actually like it a lot when there's like minotaurs in the set and that's what you care about. It adds a little more gambling to the draft, I guess, because it's like, can I get up to 13 of these or am I only going to get 6 of them? And that's kind of exciting. What I don't want in a draft is to just end up with a bunch of cards that don't talk to each other, that don't matter, that don't care about each other. And creature type stuff breaks me out of that. I get to have a couple lords. I get to have some things I care about, fun stuff. Seeing this many different types makes it a little less exciting to me. But I think all these types are cool. Assassins are like usually used on rares and stuff, and I love mercenaries.
I feel like it gives it, maybe it's a little easier to obtain, something that you can stumble into a little bit more safely.
Yeah. Unlike if you tried to do minotaurs or giants, if you're doing assassins and mercenaries and pirates and rogues and warlocks, you can kind of flavor almost any mechanical concept into one of those. So it feels not too hard for them to get enough outlaws into a set. You know, it's not a hard constraint, maybe in the same way that like mana value 6 matters. Well, it's hard to get enough of those into a deck, into a set. Whereas, you know, we've got 5 different creature types to pick from. I'm confident that they can have as many, they could pump that number up to 80% in black and red if they wanted to. I don't know if they want to do that, but they could get that number really high without compromising the gameplay.
Yeah. And it also helps if you have something that makes a token, like, for example, at knife point, one of the archetype uncommons for the set. 1 black red for an enchantment. As long as it's your turn, outlaws you control have first strike. That's your assassins, mercenaries, pirates, rogues, and warlocks are outlaws. And whenever you commit a crime, create a 1/1 red mercenary creature token with tap. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. This ability triggers only once each turn.
This has got to be one of my favorite tokens they've ever made. This mercenary token.
Oh, yeah.
Super love it.
Yeah. I love the feeling of like getting your posse together and then your little posse's teaming up to make the big bad of the. It's a classic Western trope, and as someone who likes a lot of old Westerns, there's one big bad outlaw and everybody in his posse is just working to make him as cool as possible.
Yeah, you got all kinds of flavor angles on this. I feel like it's sort of covering fire.
Yep.
There's one person who needs to do something and everyone else is going to shoot into the fray to steer people away. This sort of like with the mercenary doesn't totally want to risk themselves. They're just in it for the paycheck. So they'll help, but they don't really want to attack. They don't really want to block. So I think that it works in a lot of different ways, and I really love the mercenary vibe here. Knowing that I'm getting sort of a hybrid type matters thing where I sort of care about printed creature types on creature type creatures, whatever you want to call that, creature cards. And I also get to care about these mercenary tokens. I feel like that really ups it for me, where I feel like I'm going to be doing something that's not only functional, but also going to be cool. I'm going to have this pretty wide board with this cool creature type mercenary. It's very novel. It has a lot of built-in meaning, and I get to do a bunch of things that I don't normally get to do.
Does it almost feel like this is a better crime payoff than Intimidation Campaign? Not to go back, maybe that's a little unfair.
I mean, it certainly feels like it's going to keep you in the game more. Each of your removal spells turning into a creature means that you now get to block if you want to. And then I think probably you're also on to attack with this. You do have to kick it off. You don't get anything right away. But yeah. And plus, I think red is more likely to have something that taps to target something, tap to deal a damage to something, that kind of stuff. Feels pretty likely. The other card here is Vial Smasher with a little cowboy outfit on. 2 mana for a 3/2. Whenever another outlaw enters the battlefield under your control, deal 1 to target opponent. Oh, that's interesting. It's like the reverse. Get an outlaw, commit a crime, instead of commit a crime, get an outlaw. So they work together pretty well, too.
If you have Vial Smasher end at knife point, and then you cast another outlaw, you deal 1 damage to target opponent, and then you get another outlaw, which then deals another damage. These cards have a sick engine together, just on their own.
Yeah. They kind of work on their own, yeah.
Yeah, forget any other cards. These guys are best friends.
Yeah, the mercenaries are good at board stalls, because if you have 3 mercenaries, it's sort of like equipment. You get to promote your worst creature into a thing that needs to be blocked, and just do that turn after turn, which feels like it's not too hard for it to be successful. I think that the other thing that's kind of cool, I might normally think one of the Rakdos gold cards is going to be a removal spell.
Yeah.
That has, sets mechanic on it, like a plot murder or whatever. but that's not here. The removal spells are just out on their own. And instead I get the 2 archetype cards, like very cares about my archetype cards on here. And that really feels promising to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like they're still very Rakdos-y. I think both are encouraging you to be aggressive, but not maybe as in they're not as all in as I feel like Rakdos has been in the past. Vial Smasher has reach, if you're in a board stall, she's still doing work. And then at knife point, giving all your outlaws first strike is nothing to sniff at. First strike, it's no vigilance, but it's definitely a good keyword.
Yeah. Alrighty, so let's go down the list here. So we've got kind of our excitement. How excited are you to try to build the outlaw deck?
I think with the archetype uncommons, looking at those, with the description, with the fact that it's the Cowboys, I think this might be my 5. Are we too early to throw the 5 out here on excitement?
I don't know. I mean, we've been talking 5
pretty
like
jazzed.
talk.
Yeah. I'm pretty jazzed about this. I think the cards look cool. I think Mercenary is cool. I think all of this is just cool. If you're pitching your set and you show them somebody these cards, they're going to be like, oh yeah, I want to be an outlaw.
Yeah, I see these two and I'm dreaming about what the rest of the limited environment's going to look like. Yeah, I think, maybe I'll join you. We got to use our 5s.
Yep.
We don't need to be stingy about these. Accuracy. How likely do you think it is that we're going to have a deck that has 11 outlaws in it?
Yeah, like you said, it's called Outlaws of Thunder Junction, so we're definitely hoping for it. We have one of our things, obviously, Vial Smasher is an outlaw. At knife point makes an outlaw. I mean, maybe a 4 here. I think the token is what kind of bumps it up to it feels like I can get this consistently if I'm making these tokens as well.
So if I'm thinking I'm Rakdos and I'm not doing this, what other things am I doing? I guess I just have like good cards, or I don't know. Like maybe there is sort of something that's not outlaw but is like attrition. I'm just going to make all these tokens and then just like chump block with them or sack them and life drain my opponent. So maybe there is some way to play Rakdos without playing outlaw. Yeah, 4.
I imagine there's probably like that classic 2-mana red card that makes some tokens, and those tokens are probably mercenaries. Stuff like that.
Yeah, play a creature, get a free mercenary, that kind of stuff. So I might have 11 mercenary creature cards in my deck, but have the capability to generate 14 or 15 or 16 mercenaries because of spells. Next up, synergy. How much does this take cards that aren't that great otherwise and make them good? How dependent are these these gold cards are on building around it and not just playing generic cards?
I mean, Vial Smasher doesn't do anything unless you're playing outlaws.
Yeah.
Vial Smasher adds like an additional 1 damage to your outlaws.
Yeah.
How likely are 2 outlaws in my deck going to synergize with each other outside of these archetype uncommons? I think that's where my concern would be, is like the chances that like you give me 2 random mercenaries in the set and those 2 mercenaries care about each other, probably not that high. I don't know, I'm thinking maybe a 3 here, 3 or 4, somewhere around there.
I'm pretty high on this myself. I'm closer to a strong 4 and considering going up. I guess that Vial Smasher like not only cares about outlaws but also instigates crimes. Makes me feel like it's going to, even if I don't care that much about the outlaw part, now I get to care even more about the crime part. It's going to activate other cards that, if I don't have quite enough outlaws, I can at least still get a bunch of crime payoffs. And I think this at knife point, if I feel like I'm going to only have like 2 outlaws in my deck and I'm just going to have a bunch of removal spells, will I still play at knife point? I mean, I guess I do still get a mercenary every time I kill something. But if I'm not playing a lot of outlaws, I don't think I want this card. I think I just want more good cards. So that does make that feel pretty archetypey to me, pretty synergy based.
Yeah, you convinced me. I'm fine with a 4 here.
Alrighty. And then the raw strength. If I don't do too much to build around it, how good are these cards? I guess in some ways, sometimes the synergy grade like is the opposite of the raw strength grade. Because Vial Smasher
is a 2-mana 3/2.
I guess that's still okay. That's still acceptable.
Yeah. I mean, So like, let's say you play Vile Smasher and you trigger Vile Smasher 2 times the entire game. It was a 2-mana 3/2 that ETB'd and dealt 2 damage. That's pretty strong. That's pretty
fine.
strong.
Yeah.
At knife point, probably less so. You know, if you have no outlaws, that's not great. I mean, getting a token whenever you commit a crime, so destroy target creature, get a token. Deal 2 damage to a player, get a token.
I don't think this can be a 1 between these two.
Definitely not.
I can believe that the add knife point in an average deck that isn't outlaw-y will still get me 2 mercenaries, but slowly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which I maybe don't want in my aggro deck, but maybe in the non-synergy version, if I'm just going to play removal spells and use the tokens as bait, maybe that's okay.
I think at knife point being essentially a 3-mana do nothing enchantment hurts it substantially.
Yeah. And I guess one of the things I'm trying to remember about this exercise is that we're not just like trying to guess how good it actually is in Thunder Junction.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to more like look at this card as though we don't know that much about the set and think, does this card seem like I can just play it no matter what? And like, it might surprise me afterward.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe it doesn't rate that high on that read.
Yeah. I feel like Vile Smasher does, though. I feel like 2-mana 3/2 is a good body.
You're just slotting it into the curve every time you're this color.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's good for you.
And then, sometimes you deal an extra point of damage here and there. That's fine.
Okay.
So maybe this is a 3. At knife point brings it down a little bit, but Vile Smasher helps raise the ceiling.
I think I might go 2, but I can respect the 3. Plus that ends us up with a 3/2 as our rating, which is perfect for Vile Smasher.
All right, next up, the red-green archetype is Power 4+. Big creatures are usually their own reward, but this set steps it up. Boost your forces with spells or mercenary tokens and let the onslaught begin. This is kind of cool. You can do more so mercenaries very clearly in red, and these mercenary tokens, now you're focused on getting to the 4 power and using them to get to 4 power to get some sort of bonus. That's kind of neat.
Yeah. Until they had that mercenary part of there, I was like a firm 1 on excitement on this. The mercenary ones make it feel a little more plausible. But I might still I mean, we can get to grades later. Yeah.
Yeah. In the end, it's still the same thing of like, oh, I'm just trying to get to power 4 or greater. I think the mercenary adds a cool flavor, but I can definitely see your point of like, it's still the same thing. It's still just pumping my creatures. Big shocker that that's what we're doing. Blue-white, you kind of talked about being this found archetype where it's like, oh, this kind of works with our other stuff. What's the opposite of this where it's just like we already knew it was here, and so we're just we don't have anything else. We're just jamming this one in.
Oh, we don't actually have a cool thing to put here.
Yeah.
Yeah, with blue-white, it's like, hey, there's a cool thing we can reward people. Hey, don't cast spells on your turn. Isn't that crazy? Mm-hmm. Like, oh, the crowd goes nuts. Here, it's like, what do we have? Well, the creatures are big now because it's 2024. Let's make an archetype about that. Okay, cool. I guess maybe that helps it a little bit. If I'm trying to guess how likely it is that power 4 or greater is going to work, compared to Khans of Tarkir, I feel like I'm going to see more 4 power creatures just naturally. It's going to be easier to get to that higher number than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, and maybe those creatures will be at better spots in the curve.
Yeah.
We already saw 2-mana 3/2, so have to assume that we're going to get some 4 power 3-mana creatures.
All right, so one of our cards here is Cactus Folk Sure Shot. 2 red green, 4 mana for a 4/4. Okay, that's our solid brick stats. Reach, Ward 2, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, other creatures you control with power 4 or greater gain trample and haste until end of turn. Other creatures you control with high power.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I guess that's compatible with this mercenary dream. I've got a 3 power creature, I mercenary boost it, and now it has trample and haste.
Yep.
If I got 4 mercenaries, they all pile in their power on 1 creature, and now the creature also has trample. So it's like not only a crappy creature to start that no one wants to block and no one wants to trade for, it's also going to splash in 4 damage over the top of whoever blocks it.
Mm-hmm. The haste is nice. You know, one of the downsides of sometimes you wait the whole game to play your 6/6 is that you just die the next turn. So now your 6/6 can get in, maybe swing a game.
Yeah.
very relevant combat step ability.
Yeah.
Cactus Sure Shot, it's not the most exciting thing to read, but it's very workmanlike,
Yeah.
He comes in, he fires his shot, he hits close to the bullseye, and you're like, that guy, that cactus, he knows what he's doing. I'm a big fan of the cactus people, by the way.
Oh, you love them?
Yeah, I'm huge on the cactus people in this set. I didn't know I needed cactus cowboys until cactus cowboys were presented to me.
I guess I'm cool with them. There's another cactus person art that comes later that I think I like a little bit more. This one just feels like an AI fever dream. Not to say that the artist isn't good at their job, but this prompt here of like a cactus person who doesn't really have a face, but is still holding a machine gun.
And I love that the sun is in their non-existent eyes, so they have their hand up to cover the sun.
Yeah, one of their 4 arms up. They're also Goro from Mortal Kombat for some reason. They have a loincloth. I think the ward 2 is I think like a kind of a nice tool, because if I want to slam this down as a blocker, if they want to remove it with a removal spell, they're paying 5 mana total or something like that.
Yeah, they're probably tapping out. They're not advancing their board. It did its job.
Yeah. And it's not as important on like a red card, but on like a blue-green card, a little bit of ward is nice because I got to be using my fight spells. And to get blown out casting my fight spells, that really stinks, and ward helps me there.
All right, our other card is Jolene Plundering Pugilist, 1 red-green. For a 4/2, legendary creature human mercenary. Whenever you attack with 1 or more creatures with power 4 or greater, create a treasure token. 1 red, sacrifice a treasure. Jolene deals 1 damage to any target.
I'm glad Jolene's back. The name is just great because of Dolly Parton. Thank you, Dolly Parton.
3 mana. Hold on. What do you think of the snake cowboy before we get too far ahead of ourselves?
The snake horse?
The snake horse. The Snorse.
It kind of feels like it was made by a necromancer looking at like this stitch line, like right where...
I think Giralf is here. It's possible.
Yeah. Kind of like an owl bear created by wizards.
I would not get on the back of a snake horse personally.
Jolene can handle it though.
Yeah, she's tough. She's tougher than I am.
This art's cool. Yeah. 4/2 feels like the power and toughness of someone who uppercuts people.
3 mana. You can attack with her. You get a treasure token. Now you're casting more of your big creatures.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Treasures are kind of naturally good.
Yeah.
So, you attack with her on turn 4, get a treasure token. She trades off for a 2/4. That's fine. I ended up with an extra treasure token. I'm going to use that to cast a 5-drop on turn 4. Okay. That deal's fine.
I think there's a world where this is 1 red-green for a creature that makes 2 mana, like taps to add 2 mana. And it's like so much more boring and so much less exciting. So this is like a step in the right direction. I feel like it's not that exciting, but like it does the job.
I mean, we're like 8 for 8 on cards that do exactly what their archetype says they're going to do. Like they did not print the like destroy target land or artifact as a Gruul card. They didn't do anything like that. These 2 Gruul cards care exactly about what the archetype says they care about. All right, let's break these down. So excitement. How excited are you to make the 4+ power deck?
I think I'm on board with you for giving it the 1 here.
All right.
Especially because neither of these cards if one of these cards made a mercenary, I'm probably in.
Yeah, instead of treasure, this card makes mercenaries to help my other things get big. Okay, yeah. Maybe. This is like a 1.3 because of the mercenary mention. It didn't get me that close to it too. Accuracy. How likely is it that my deck is all about playing 4 power creatures?
And this is probably gotta be another 5, right?
You think so?
You're probably gonna find some more 4 power creatures in your red-green deck.
How many 4 power creatures are you gonna have in your deck?
Well, how many mercenaries do I have to make my 2-drops into 4 power creatures?
Okay, so we'll do kind of a hybrid thing there. I think you're gonna have like 4 or 5 creatures that are 4 or more power. Do you think it's going to be much higher than that? Are you thinking there's going to be 8 4 power creatures and then some mercenaries backing them up?
Yeah, maybe you're right. Man, I feel like you get to like 7 or 8 probably. So that's half
Really?
your
Okay.
creatures.
Yeah. I guess if there's like a cycle of the like a cycling cards where I get to
Hmm.
get extra big creatures in there for free, maybe.
Hmm. Yeah, but maybe in my dream world, my curve is just way too high, and I die to like the just Vile Smasher hitting me as a 3/2.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right. I think it comes down to like, are you actually going to use mercenaries to increase your 3 power creature to a 4 power creature? And like, is that going to feel really good? Is that going to push you over the top? Because you're right. A lot of times when you're doing the 4 power creature or the 5 power deck, it's not to like turn 5 or 6 that you really are starting to hit
Yeah.
and get that consistently. Cactus Sure Shot doesn't even care about the fact that it has 4 power. It needs something else with 4 power. So you can't even really count Cactus Sure Shot that well.
Yeah. I guess that's true. So you play Sure Shot on 4.
Yep.
On turn 5, you play like a 3-power creature who's cool for other reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But you had a mercenary from turn 2 or turn 3. And so on turn 5, you're buffing your 3-power creature up to 4 so they get an attack in this turn.
Yeah, that is really convincing me that to go the other way. That sounds like very close to Magical Christmas Land.
I guess if you have a lot of mercenary generation, if that's a possibility, if it's possible that in the set in like Jund or whatever, there are 15, 20 cards that make mercenary tokens, which would be a huge number.
Mm-hmm.
Then it means anything that creates a mercenary can get pumped by the other mercenaries and immediately get slungshot into the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'll play the Sure Shot for the basic keywords, and this this forward grader is just a nice to have.
Yeah, I think you're right. What are you thinking?
I was thinking too. I'm willing to come up because you've got a dream.
No, I say let's give it a 2. Give it a 2.
This is not a judgment on how cool cactus people are. All right, synergy. Is this going to make cards that aren't otherwise good better? Is this going to make our mercenary dream come true? If I do have a bunch of mercenaries with Jolene, am I getting excited because I get some more treasure? I guess Jolene's kind of good against mercenaries.
The problem is like the reason I'm playing a creature in my deck, like how many creatures am I adding to my deck now that I wouldn't have added before because it has 4 power? And I don't feel like that number is very high. Like I'm not looking at a card and being like, oh, I wasn't going to play this, but it has 4 power. Now it's awesome.
Yeah.
I don't think that's happening.
There was something really true that you were saying about like giving haste and trample to your new big creature is good.
Mm-hmm.
Like if for some reason I had like 3 of these Sure Shots, then I'd start to be, I guess now I have 3-4 drops, and now I'm considering adding some 5 and 6 drops. That's a little tough. But every time I, speed boost a 6-drop into the red zone, that is great. Especially because the creature that it came on, was really otherwise very reasonable. I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to talk up something that I don't totally believe in. Does this make bigger creatures that much better? Jolene doesn't really make bigger creatures better, I would say.
No, not at all. I feel like Jolene really only synergizes that well with herself.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you think? You want to give him a 1 or a 2 here? Do you want to reward the cactus for giving haste and give him a 2?
I think the haste and trample is good enough that I'm happy giving it a 2. That is like a good ability that does make some cards a little bit better in my deck. I think the place where this may do actually pretty well is the raw power, because that Sure Shot, just the reach and ward combo, is like a great defensive option, and also just a 4-mana 4/4 is a great offensive option. So the Sure Shot like does everything that I want a 4-drop to do.
Yep. Jolene, 3-mana 4/2s, fine stats. She doesn't trade that well, but she'll make a treasure when she attacks in. She'll probably kill something, sacrifice stuff.
Yeah, she can kill anything that's that's like a 2/1 or something that's really puny that would trade really favorably. And then she actually does trade with things that are like the same size as her. Like if your 4/2 has to trade with their 2/3 with an ability, I guess that has to happen. Seems super unlikely that I'm going to treasure off and have like the ability to deal 2 or 3 damage very much. I guess it kind of turns my attacks into crimes as well if I need them to.
Oh, yeah, that's
So
true.
I get a little bit of crime payoff with Jolene. That doesn't help with the synergy, but it does help with raw power.
Mm-hmm.
That makes just a variety of other cards in the set more easy to trigger.
I mean, the Cactus Sure Shot, by like, if that was the only card here, that's probably like a 5, right? Like, that's just everything you want. Jolene doesn't feel quite on the same level, but still feels strong, so probably a 4 here on strength. Or do you want to give him a 5 just out of respect for the giant plant man?
But the Sure Shot isn't so good that I'm like, oh, I'm slamming this over most of the rares. It's not quite
you're
that
not
level.
first picking it. Yeah.
So it's the raw power isn't super, super high, but it is pretty high. And then Jolene, I think 4 feels really fair to me.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next up we have mounts. There's a whole stable of mounts eager to charge into battle. Every time a mount attacks backed by some skilled riders, you'll reap more rewards. Saddle up.
Nice.
I'm gonna have a bunch of saddle creatures. Saddle is sort of like a halfway crew. It's like a creature normally, but it becomes a little better at attacking if you're willing to spend another creature to saddle it. In this world, riders are unskilled labor. You just anybody can successfully ride a horse and make that horse like do a really good job.
Yeah, a horse can ride a horse if you really want it to.
Yeah.
This is like something that you knew was going to be here. When they said that, hey, we're doing a cowboy western style set, everyone was like, okay, well, we need horses to ride. And it's kind of one of those things that it's filling a niche that Magic hasn't had for a long time, where it's like something that makes a lot of sense for Magic to have is like the knight riding a horse and having the actual horse that they're riding and then making that a mechanic somehow.
Yeah, there have been a lot of attempts at sort of like horse riding or mounting mechanics. Yeah, I remember when we had Pass On for his Lord of the Rings set, they kind of reversed it into riding. These are creatures that basically like jumped on a creature and then they attack together. In order to block the rider, you have to also block the mount. So it's sort of a little bit of an evasion keyword. Right. But here it's all about just like using it's almost like a reverse mercenary. It's like hey, everyone, make me feel good and then I'll be a better, cool animal.
Maybe we should take a look at Congregation Gryph.
Yeah.
Which is a Hippogriff mount. 1 green white for a 1/4. It has flying and lifelink. And whenever it attacks while saddled, it gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of mounts you control. It has saddle 3, so you tap any number of other creatures you control with total power 3 or more. This mount becomes saddled until end of turn, and you can only do that as a sorcery. You have your Hippogriff out with maybe a couple other mounts. Maybe a mount is mounting the Hippogriff. And now you have this, flyer that's going to get an increased or a power buff. It has 2 solid abilities too that maybe the creature you're saddling it with wouldn't have, and so now you get to add flying and lifelink on top of it. So it's not a bad creature on its face.
Lifelink is often like a premium keyword, and it's often on like little ground creatures. So to get it on a flyer is quite nice.
A flyer that buffs itself too.
Yeah, and it's at least going to buff. The way that it's worded is kind of funny because the number of mounts you control, this is a mount. So you're at least going to get 1 power when you saddle this. So you're at least, you got a lifelink 2 power, which is pretty nice. And also makes it like a solid blocker because, the normal thing of the opponent has 2 3/3s, they attack into this. You block one of them, you actually get a little life back, and then the other one gets through. So the lifelink on a creature with a lot of toughness and flying, this is like just a good base combo of abilities. I guess Saddle 3 is saying, hey, if you do want to do that, though, you're going to be paying for it.
Yep.
Though, I guess like in both green and white, I'm expecting getting to 3 power is like pretty free. Like most green creatures are going to be 3 power. A lot of white creatures are going to be a 3/1 or something, a 3/2.
Yeah, 2 mana 3/1 is definitely a common stat line that you can for sure pick up in almost any limited environment. And our other uncommon archetype is a 3/2 herself, 2 mana 3/2. Miriam Herd Whisperer, green white for a 3/2. As long as it's your turn, mounts and vehicles you control have hexproof, and whenever a mount or vehicle you control attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it.
Hmm.
So these two work great together.
Anytime you can get a counter every turn in limited, you got to be suspicious that it's going to be pretty sick.
A counter every turn in limited on any mount or vehicle. Like, it's not just one counter on one thing either. If you have two mounts, they both can have a counter.
Oh, yeah. It's got plenty of oats for any number of horses.
Yeah. She can take care of an entire stable.
Yeah.
That's not a concern.
Without even raising her voice. This is only if you are the deck. I guess it has some raw power. It's a 2-mana 3/2, but its abilities do not work until you got your balance of vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of nice that we get this like growing ability, which is clearly the main feature of the card. But getting hexproof on your turn for your mounts and vehicles also means that when you go to saddle a mount, that mount can't get shot out of the air, can't get destroyed or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to do like green removal, if you want to do fight spells, you're also safe to do that. We talked a little bit about that with Ward, and it's even more true with Hexproof. Hexproof is that iron wall. I'm safe to cast any fight spell I want.
It feels like maybe because crime is such a key part of the set, and so therefore you expect people to be targeting your creatures with removal spells as one of the best ways to do crime. It feels like the set is kind of inherently putting some protection there, so that the decks that require a little bit more setup, are more creature focused, aren't just getting completely blown out because of a removal spell.
How exciting is this? Are you excited about horses? Are you excited about saddling a bunch of animals to make them stronger?
I think I'm about a 3 on this one.
Yeah.
It is definitely not the coolest. It's no mercenary.
Yeah, it's a little less exciting than that for me. Yeah. I think 3's fair. Yeah, let's go 3.
It does the job. It meets expectations.
Yeah. Accuracy, how likely is it that I'm going to have a bunch of saddle creatures or creatures that are good at saddling? Maybe like Miriam, maybe, they're creatures when they become tapped or when they're when they're like a rider that really cares about being on top of other creatures.
And I think we have a great proof of concept in Kaladesh too. I feel like Kaladesh vehicles, I don't think it was particularly hard to get vehicles. It wasn't particularly hard to find things that were good at crewing vehicles. And here, in this case, it's even easier because creatures are even more playable. Their baseline is just significantly better than an artifact.
I guess with vehicles, I don't think there were many decks that had more than 3 vehicles. I don't know that I ever saw those. But here, I could believe that there's a deck with 11 mounts.
Yeah.
And then things that are good with those mounts. So accuracy, I'm thinking 4. How are you feeling?
Yeah, that seems about right.
All right. Synergy. How much can you use like 2 different cards to combine to make something even better? This was kind of awkward because that's by definition what saddling is. It's using 2 cards to make a better card. But I don't really mean synergy in that way. I mean, how often are you playing cards you wouldn't normally play? And I think, except for Miriam here, I think this is kind of low synergy. This is just a bunch of individual cards that give you a good deal.
I think Miriam is probably the only synergy that the deck would necessarily have.
Yeah.
There might be an occasional card that cares about you controlling a mount, Congregation Grip cares about you controlling a mount, but like
a pump spell that gives an extra pump if you're a mount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably a 2.
Yeah, I'm feeling 2. And then raw strength. I think that Griff's raw strength is reasonably high. Miriam's raw strength is obviously like pretty low. One of the purposes of Saddle is that the raw power of all the Saddle cards is just exactly what it says on the card. You don't have to worry about the composition of your deck. Each of these cards are going to do exactly what they tell you they're going to do. Though these 2 particular cards don't seem that naturally that powerful. I guess the Griff is kind of funny because the Griff specifically wants you to have mounts. I'm guessing all the other mounts don't care about other mounts, but this one really cares.
Yeah, I mean, 3 mana 2/5 with flying and lifelink, I feel like is honestly pretty good in limited.
Yeah, flying lifelink. It's just that feels like it would at least get to 3 for me.
I think 3 sounds about right.
This is kind of weird because we gave it a low synergy grade, but both these cards like go absolutely nuts with synergy. maybe we need to go higher on synergy, is what I'm thinking.
It is funny how these two scores really go hand in hand together. Maybe they're both. Maybe it's 3 and 3. Maybe this is the perfect middle ground.
Yeah, maybe we'll upgrade the synergy there, because if you have 2 mounts on the battlefield and this Griff, like, holy cow, you're going to be like life linking. What are they going to do? And if you have 2 mounts on the battlefield and you have Miriam, it's over. Any removal spell you have, anything else you can do to stop your opponent, you're just going to run over them nonstop.
It's not really a Johnny type of synergy where it's like you're doing something, really creative or unique or different. It's just like, hey, my cards work together.
Yeah. These 2 gold cards definitely make other cards much better. But other mounts, the mono white mount and the mono green mount will not make each other better, I don't think. Yeah. Oh, 3 and 3. Let's do that. Missteps actually turned out to be kind of a big one. So what we're going to do is just split this into a nice little 2-parter. If you're listening to this right as it comes out, you've got another couple days for the Solar Eclipse Design Challenge, but I think most of you have already got your submissions in for that. Hop on the Discord if you haven't yet. Make sure to put in that submission thread. And then that'll be it for the podcast for the week. Get in that Discord, submit your things. I think we got some new events that are maybe starting in a week or 2. They aren't announced yet, but the Discord is where all that's going to happen. Thanks again for jumping in. Do you have do we want to save the movie rec for next week, or do you got one to deploy this week?
Oh, I can probably get 2 movies.
Oh, 2 movies.
To recommend. Oh. Yeah. So
now that's value.
Yeah. Well, so let's do, for this week, I'd probably say the original Western, Stagecoach.
Oh.
It's this movie about a literal stagecoach that has to go across this land where there's stagecoaches are frequently being attacked, and the military is like kind of left it to be just overrun by people attacking these stagecoaches. It's like got to be one of the most captivating pre-1940 movies I've ever watched, where it's like a lot of cool storylines going on, an interesting cast of characters. Yeah, one of the very first Westerns to ever really come out. And definitely one of the most popular original Westerns. So if you want to get in the mood for Outlaws of Thunder Junction, the original Western is a good place to start.
Alrighty. If you need to find either of us, Discord is going to be the way to do that. And thanks everybody for listening.
You aren't even going to have to add the outro music eventually. We're just going to have our own.